does a baby computer call his father?
I don't know.
Data.
Ah.
Da. After an unsuccessful harvest, why did the farmer decide to try a career in music?
I have no idea.
Because he had a ton of sick beats.
You got one
I
more?
only seem to get sick on Wednesdays. I must have a weekend immune system. Weekend.
You're actually laughing at that one. Yeah.
Why am I telling these jokes?
Because Aaron? It's such a plot device of this movie we're covering. That's why I think you're telling bad jokes.
Bad jokes. Because we're covering... See, there's more meanings. Speaking of bad jokes, we're covering Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Dun-dun-dun.
Yeah, so we're doing this. You watched it last night.
I did.
When was the first time you watched it? Did you see it in the theater?
We did see it in theaters. I think we saw it maybe even the day it came out, which was already delayed because of the pandemic for like over a year. I remember seeing the teaser trailer with the car, the Ecto-1 in the barn. That was super exciting. I really liked the teaser trailer, and I was all about it. I was like, hey, all right, another Ghostbusters movie that actually is a proper sequel. So then I saw the movie, and I was kind of so-so on it.
I saw it in theaters. I believe this was one of a doubleheader. I think this and Eternals we saw at the same time.
All in one day?
Yeah.
Oh, that's rare. It was something people did back in the day, but that's when movies were only like an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half at the most. Yeah. But seeing double feature nowadays when movies are always 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
That's a big...
Wasn't Eternals like 3 hours?
Probably. I just talked about this with my kids yesterday. I was like, hey, there used to be things called intermissions they would put in movies that were only 2 hours long because they just knew that was too much for anyone to sit through. But along came a company called Marvel, and now it's normal to make an over 3 hour movie and not include an intermission. But even if they did include an intermission, nobody would leave, because Marvel would also put some sort of Easter egg in the intermission. So if you missed it, you would be pissed off. That's exactly what Marvel would do. So it's probably best they don't waste another 20 minutes of our time.
It's true. 2 hours and 37 minutes, Eternals.
Yeah. Still too long.
So that was a long day at the
For that movie?
For that movie.
We can give people 2 hours of a forgettable movie, but why not just give them an extra half hour to forget?
Now everybody's thinking they do these movies for a reason now. In the first part of Marvel, they would throw stuff in the end credit scenes, and that would be the tease. And they still do that, but it'd mostly just be a movie. There's a lot of plotting that goes on in the movies themselves now that are about the future. Did that make sense?
I don't know. I feel like you're referencing an article that I have not read yet, but I saw, I think it was Variety, that they were saying Marvel with the new Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, they continue their trend of giving you post-credit scenes that have nothing to do with any other movie, but just the movie you're already watching. And it sounds like the article was going to say how that's annoying, because if the post-credit scene is about the movie you were just watching, why not just make that part of the actual movie? If you're going to give us a post-credit scene, it should be about a tease for another movie.
That's an interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
And this is what Ghostbusters Afterlife does. They just kind of add in a little extra thing that wasn't important enough to put in the actual story, but then they're wasting our time with something in the post-credits. What's the first post-credits in Afterlife? Not to obviously skip ahead to the very end of the movie. Wasn't there a post-credit? And then we get another one that actually teases the future with Winston. And
yeah. And I was really mad about that because I didn't realize there were two when we were in the theater. So I only saw the first one.
I remember being in film school. This was only like 2001, right? And they made a big point of, if you're a filmmaker or you respect films, you sit through the credits, because people worked hard on these movies and you sit through them. That's not reality anymore, because when they said that 20 years ago, 1,500 people would not work on a movie. But now, because of all the special effects, literally 1,500 people work on a film. Now you got 5 minutes or more of credits, and they want you to sit through all that so you can see hundreds of names under character design. Like, who has time for that?
I don't have a strong opinion either way.
These are just my complaints, that aren't going to change anything.
Yeah.
It's my grievances.
Do whatever you want. Now, while I am a do whatever you want, I am against sped up credits. like they do on streaming.
Like the old classic TV movies, how they would just fly them.
Yeah.
And then it would like get pushed over for like a tease for on tonight's 2020 or whatever. So you couldn't read it. They were too fast and they were too small to read.
That I have a problem with.
Yeah. I just remember watching, like, for instance, when we watched 2001 A Space Odyssey, like, those don't even scroll. Those are just simple title cards that would just pop up and they'd be up for 5 seconds. They'd disappear and another one pop up. He made a whole movie with, like, 50 people. So you could sit through those credits and you didn't have to scroll them, and that was perfectly fine. That's just what I pine for with movies, is that it's just there's too many people working on movies. It makes it less intimate, in my opinion, to know that many people had their hand in one product. Now, I think that's good for the industry because it gets a lot of jobs, and that's great. But it's too much. I just feel like they're too long and there's too many people working on them. But that's all I wanted to say.
How much time had passed since you first saw the movie and saw it tonight? Like, was that the first time you've watched it again?
I saw it in theaters. So that would have been 21, right? Like June of 21 or November of 21 or whenever they ended up. I think they were going to release it June of 2020, and then it got pushed back. They did not release it until November, I believe, of 2021. So I saw it in November, and I didn't see it again until I was on the plane to Disney World with my family in April of this year. And then I think we watched it again during the summer because you owned it, and then I had access to it. So I think this is the 4th time I've seen it. That's
a lot of times. So have you found your opinion of the movie changing much over the course of the viewings?
The first time I saw it, I was disappointed in what they did to Egon. And then the second time I saw it, I was a little less disappointed because I think I enjoyed it a little more with the kids. And then by the summer viewing and now this viewing, I'm back to feeling like I don't really like the movie. And what they did to Egon really ruins everything for me.
Now, if you've never watched this movie before or seen the original Ghostbusters, you're going to be really confused. Think about that.
Well, I just feel like he made this movie for a new generation. And it was like, this is the way kids like to watch movies now. And if we're going to make new Ghostbuster fans, we need to give them something. Now, there's a little bit of everything, but nothing quite gelled.
I have also watched this movie a few times since theaters, and I initially was very up on it.
You were. I remember we talked about it after you saw it.
I've come down from that high. I still... It's a fun movie with some glaring flaws, is where I stand. I like it. I enjoy watching it.
I don't like it. I hardly laughed. Every joke is a groaner, and not just the bad jokes she tells. Like, those are intentionally bad. But like when somebody says something funny, somebody tells them that what they said was funny. They do it like 2 or 3 times. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't.
He says I can't get a single bar on my phone, and she's like, there better be a bar. And then McKenna Grace, who plays the young Phoebe, is like, that's funny. And then podcast later, when she tells a joke, he goes, that's funny. Like, the comedy is really bad in this movie.
That makes me laugh. When you're telling me about the thing you don't like,
yeah, well,
it made me smile. Because that's something I say. Instead of laughing at a joke, I'll often be like, that's funny. I like that.
I know, but I just felt it like overreaching almost, and they're trying too hard, and they're just like, they're afraid that people won't understand it was a joke, so we need to tell the audience that that's funny. And it bothered me.
There better
be
a
bar.
At
least twice, maybe 3 times.
And then the kids like look at the camera and give the high five. Like,
yeah,
did you get it?
That's you can laugh at that. That's practically what she was doing, and it really bothered me. And here's I mean, we don't want to jump ahead to all my grievances. We can take the movie a step at a time, and I'll tell you what I hated about it.
I feel like we should just dissect it. And
yeah, let's dissect.
But no, keep talking. Like, I mean, okay. Yeah, we don't need to go in order.
Hey, look, it's been 32 years, I guess, as far as this timeline goes, since Ghostbusters 2. Ghostbusters are no more. No one even knows about them for some reason, except a chosen few who happen to be old enough to be alive during the 80s, like Paul Rudd's character, Mr. Gruberson. Beyond that, nobody knows or cares.
I think it's mostly they don't care.
That's the other inherent issue with this movie, is that no one at all, except for Paul Rudd, is impressed by a goddamn thing that they find in this amazing city in Oklahoma. Wouldn't that just be the most amazing summer ever if you got to live in that house at that age? And then you found a secret lab underground. And I know I hate my dad, but he was Egon Spangler. He was a Ghostbuster. The stuff that happened in the 80s, there was a 100-foot marshmallow man. Does this not just amaze everyone? No, not a single person in this movie is amazed by any goddamn thing they see. The cops are not even baffled by a nuclear proton pack that they have now in their lockup.
You know, that's not bad.
This is what just turned me off. And the most the most reproachable, whatever, character in the whole movie is the mom. She is awful. Everything about her is miserable, sarcastic.
She is miserable.
And then just the blatant fan service. He literally made it for that one showing where they would put it at the San Diego Comic-Con and everybody would cheer and stand up and rip roaring about how, like, there's a proton pack. Oh, there's the Twinkie bar. Oh, there's that orange device that they had at their college thing that they were wheeling out when they got kicked out by the dean.
Oh, really?
What do you think?
I'm not as hard on this movie as that. When I watch a movie, I generally just, strap in and let it take me where it wants to go. I try to let it get me sucked in, so I'm not thinking about those flaws the first time. And then I go back and I try to be critical. Overall, this movie is a hard one to talk about.
Well, my other point is, that of course that's me being critical about everything now that I have time to think about it because I've viewed it so many times. But the first time I saw it, I had problems too because the story doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Well, the story does.
Why does Egon not tell a goddamn person what he's doing? Why does he go insane and become a apocalyptic prepper? There's no explanation to that. Why does he tell Phoebe where to find the ghost trap? Because he wants her to release the demon back to the mountain so he can cause the problem again?
That part didn't make sense, no.
So this is what the movie's working with here. I'm like, everything happens by accident? Everything was fine. His stuff was working.
And so he died in that chair. And we know that Annie Potts, she had to have been the one that discovered the body.
Yeah, she said, I don't know. She said she would handle his finances. But then there wasn't any money. I'm like, what? You just said two conflicting things in one sentence. I don't understand what you're talking about. He could barely keep the power on. Really? If you walk around that lab, all the power was on all the fucking time. I'm walking around my house. My kids never turn off a light. I'm always turning things off because I'm like, this is costing me money. There's so much power running through that whole barn there's power everywhere. How does he not have money for all this?
Okay, wait. And so, we see at the beginning his trap fail.
Yes.
Right? And then we get to the end of the movie, and they haven't done anything to fix it.
No, they haven't done a goddamn thing to fix it.
So we're just sitting there.
Right. And, the proton pack, she melts the metal when she tests the proton pack. She melts everything. And then when Trevor at the very end needs to power it, he just fires the proton pack at it. And it doesn't melt the metal this time. It powers it? I'm like, what are you talking about? And where did the Ghostbusters get the equipment at the end?
Where did they get the equipment? Because Egon stole it all.
He stole it all. And their suits were down in his basement. Where did they get it? Did they stop in the basement in his secret lab first? Is that a scene that we didn't see? Where they got there early? Who drove? It was probably Winston, right? He probably drove. He's probably got the best vehicle. When they were in New York and they're like, we got to go to Oklahoma, Winston will be like, well, I got a nice vehicle. Let's take a trip. And why did they know to bring their gear if they were the ones that brought it? And why did they have gear? These are questions I have, and it bothered me that there was no answers.
The original Ghostbusters showing up at the end sucks.
It sucks.
It sucks.
And I didn't want it to suck. I was so disappointed when they showed up.
If they had been in the movie more, I think this movie would have been more fun. And yeah, these movies, just like with our Ghostbusters 2 episode, so much of it is us giving the movie a pass because it's something that we like.
Yeah, but I still think that Ghostbusters 2, for all its story problems, is a funny movie. This one, I've rolled my eyes so many times. And Mr. Gruberson, why would he even bother to teach a summer science class? And why would all these parents would be pissed off if they knew they signed their kids up for a summer science class and the teacher's a complete asshole who could care less about doing anything. He just shows them Cujo and Child's Play, and he doesn't do anything because he's so wrapped up with his seismology stuff. Like, this does not make him a good person. And he is the most likable one.
That's because Paul Rudd is the Bill Murray.
But Murray wasn't hurting anyone other than that one guy in his class that he was electrocuting.
I was going to say.
But they were adults. They weren't little kids.
Yes.
It felt more like it was summer school, like detention kind of thing, is what they played it out. That's what I felt it was when I first watched it.
That's the feeling I got out of it. These are the kids that had to go there so that they could get the credits they need to graduate, that kind of thing.
And is that why Phoebe's there? Because they're new to this school, so she needs to get a leg up or something with that?
That's the part that doesn't make sense because she's a genius. Why does she have to go to summer school?
Yeah, so it's not. It's a summer science program, like a fun thing for kids to keep them occupied. And Rudd has no interest in serving them in any way whatsoever. I was just like, what a dick.
Yeah, that is kind of a dick move.
I think they're trying to he's just trying to say he's so wrapped up and trying to figure out why they're shaking in Somerville. But and like that's supposed to endear you to him.
Oh, yeah.
Or endear him to us. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and the very next time we see him, they find the ghost trap, they do the YouTube thing, and then they commit property damage at the school.
And he puts it on his car. You know, when that scene happened, my daughter goes, "Why is he putting it on his car hood?" And she's like, why wouldn't he just put it on the ground away from anything where that could get broken? And I said, yeah, good question, Ava. I don't know why.
I like that they made the ghost trap that heavy duty that it needed electricity that it needed to be jumped by a bus.
I do like that, yeah.
So,
what was the Shandor thing? Like, I mean, they say he's alive, but I feel like he's in like some sort of suspended animation and somehow will be awakened from the power of Gozer.
Gozer is like some kind of death god or something, right?
Yeah.
Do they ever actually say? But
well, wasn't the original kind of like Shandor thought civilization was too sick to survive, so he brought upon the apocalypse, and Gozer was how that would happen, like just to destroy. I don't know, is Gozer one of those things that's like wants to destroy everything and then build it back in their image? I don't know, they don't go that far into it, but apparently Gozer will just destroy and not so much enslave.
I want to start doing some bitching,
please,
with my problems with this film. And again, overall, I like the movie. It's entertainment, but it's not what you would call classically good.
Well, what do you like? I mean,
the nostalgia.
How do you like the movie? Because I watch it and the problem for me is I don't laugh. I find it obnoxious and it's not funny. So I don't know how I've tried 4 times now to find some enjoyment in it. So I'm just curious, like what is it that makes you be like, I want to watch this movie again?
I like the kids. I think I'm just like Jason Reitman's style. So I like the sarcastic, stupid kids. Even though like all of your criticism from earlier is very valid. Like there should be more awe.
Yeah, there's definitely should be more. I'll give you that. Any action sequence is entertaining. I'll give you that. Like I do enjoy that. Like when they first went after Muncher, like that was fun.
So the Ghostbusters were about a bunch of guys that didn't know what the hell they were doing fighting ghosts. And over time, they got good at it. But it's the same concept here as where we just have a bunch of kids that don't know what they're doing. They're like, oh, fuck it, let's fight some ghosts. That's fun. So let's start breaking this down a little, though. We've talked about some of our problems with this movie on different episodes before.
Yeah, even episodes that had nothing to do with Ghostbusters. I remember we've talked about it.
And I feel good about that. Legacy sequels have a bad habit of breaking this rule, which is they have a main character from the original movie do something out of character in the time between the two movies. We have Han Solo and Leia getting a divorce and having a kid that's all fucked up.
They never had that great of a relationship, so the fact that they would divorce would not be out of character for them, is what I felt.
Or we could just do Luke.
And it's certainly not their fault that their son turned out the way he did, I don't think. It's more Luke's fault.
Yeah, we could just talk about how Luke didn't live up to what we thought or he thought of himself.
Did you feel the Last Jedi? It was Last Jedi. That's what it was called, right?
Yeah.
That he was out of character. It made sense to me that he could be who he was that we met in that movie. It never bothered me. I know it did bother a lot of people.
No, so it didn't bother me.
You know why? Because who's the filmmaker again?
Rian Johnson.
Because Rian Johnson told a compelling story that made you believe Luke was where he was.
Oh, yeah.
This one didn't do that with Egon. You just had Rey over the phone explain to you how Egon went crazy, and we're all just supposed to be like, oh, that tracks. But I didn't feel that. I was like, no, that's way out of character for him. Why would he do that?
Way out of character. There's more. We have Blade Runner. Harrison Ford being in hiding all those years is weird.
But it was because he was trying to protect his wife, right? Wasn't that why? They went into hiding so he could keep her alive. That was his motivation.
No, he went into hiding because he was a replicant who had a baby.
We were never in agreement on this, though, because I felt he could always have just been a human. Like, it didn't really matter.
Then why would he have to hide?
But she was definitely, because of her, because he was with her,
well,
and they needed to hide her.
She was dead for, like, 20 years?
Yeah. Well, he got used to it. I mean, he did build a life for himself with her. I don't know how long it lasted, but I think it lasted long enough for him to just be in that place.
He was living in a wasteland.
So did he have to go back? I don't know. Would he have to go back?
Anyway,
yeah,
like,
you're right. It could be.
It feels like we see it over and over with legacy sequels and the message isn't wrong. The message is always that these people are complex and they're not always just going to do what we want because they're characters and characters are all fucked up.
Sure.
It's totally fair.
But you still have to lead your audience to get to that believable point in the change in that character. And that's not what they did in this movie. But I do feel that's what Rian Johnson did with Luke. And I don't know, it didn't seem to bother me, I guess, with Blade Runner.
I really like what they did with Harold Ramis in this movie. Like, I thought they treated it pretty well, but it didn't need to be in there.
I think it was I can't think of another movie that was a more slap in the face to the original movies than this movie and what they did to Egon.
Now, let me be specific. I'm not talking about the character. I'm just talking about how they treated Harold Ramis.
Sure, I guess.
Like, I did,
but none of it made sense.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I thought they did a great job with the CGI ghost and not having him talk, thank Christ.
But why wouldn't he talk?
Because he's
It just
dead.
stood out. It stood out as he's dead and we can only do so much with him. It didn't stand out like, oh, he wouldn't talk because he's a ghost. No, all the ghosts have noises they make. Why wouldn't he talk? And why wasn't he sucked into the ghost trap at the end like everyone else was?
Yeah. And Gozer's not a fucking ghost. Gozer's a god. I'm not sure why Gozer is able to be sucked up.
Well, this movie, I feel like, changed some things by making Zool and Vince. They would combine to form her. I don't know what they were saying, but they made her more of an apparition. Two apparitions come together to form Zool. So if you separate one from the next, you pull these ghostly things apart from each other, and that's what went into the trap. That, at least, they did a little bit of work on to make it make sense.
If you take that back and think about that in the original movie, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it's not a deal killer for me.
No,
with the movie, the way the Egon thing is, you can't turn somebody, but like a beloved character, you can't turn them into a deadbeat dad. Why did you do that to Egon? I can't think of him as anything more than a piece of shit for abandoning his family. He could have just took them with him.
He absolutely could have taken them with him.
And it doesn't make any sense. This family, he had kids during Ghostbusters 2 when he's talking to Dana and he's working at that college again.
He's got kids.
Where the fuck are they?
Yeah.
He's a city guy. He's not some dude that would just up and move to Oklahoma. He's a total city dude. He works at colleges, for God's sakes. This is not Egon.
No.
Looking like a trucker living in a shitty farmhouse. Like, I just am like, this is two different people. What are you trying to do here? I don't know.
It was just a bad decision. So they defeated Zool in the original movie by crossing their streams, which broke the gateway.
The way Ray or Egon explained it, it would send like a repelling force into it or something like that. So then it would close the door. So in this movie, they're not at the door. I guess the door is anywhere Zool wants it to be.
Well, in the first Ghostbusters, they opened a portal to Zool.
Yeah, and it was because the selenium girders in the building would pull in and concentrate psychokinetic energy.
Yeah. So Zool was on one side of the door, and they closed the door. They didn't defeat Zool. And so at the end of this movie, they go to cross their streams shooting Zool.
She uncrosses them.
Because they never used that in the first movie to attack Zool. So they do it again for the wrong reason. And they're the guys that came up with the plan. And so that was just stupid.
It was stupid, but I actually kind of thought that was funny. Because, again, the Ghostbusters that was not a character for them. They're doing something they don't really know what they're doing. But it seemed to make sense. So what does she do? She uncrosses the streams, and that's what one of them says. She's uncrossing the streams. So that actually was one of the few times I was like, oh, that's pretty funny. But I don't know what they were trying to do. Yeah. Just shooting her with proton packs didn't really seem to do anything anyways, but they keep doing it. It was all about the trap. They just knew the trap would pull the ghost from her. And if it's separated, she's not a threat. That's all they're really doing. And the way they go about it is very complicated and borderline dangerous to all their lives.
So that's an interesting thought. They didn't close the door.
No, in this new movie, they did not. They just trapped her this time.
Reitman was thinking about this, and I'm curious if he did that on purpose, because the only reason there were ghosts is because every 30 years or whatever, the pathway is closer and all that shit. And so we had ghosts because that door was going to open, and it never got closed this time.
The reason they would need the Ghostbusters again is because there's more psychokinetic activity. Is it kinetic? I don't know if that's the word I'm using.
I don't know.
Kinetic.
Yeah.
Whatever
the
Ray
ghosty
always says
juice,
in the first movie. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And the big bad, Zool, is out of the way for now. She's not going to be a problem as long as they don't open it up. As long as Egon doesn't just tell some kid to go open a ghost trap the way he did in this movie. Or was that his plan? Like, we need to trap her, so I do need you to release the ghost again, and I'll pray that you guys will be smart enough to finish my plan, even though I'm not going to tell you what the fuck I was doing, because I can't talk. But I will materialize at some point. Apparently I have that power, but I won't until it's deemed important enough to be dramatic in the movie. Yes. I don't know.
The time is coming for the portal to be opened. The devil dogs are able to break through, and together they open the gateway. That's supposed to be the act of them fucking. That opens the gateway.
Yes.
And then their job is kind of done in the original. In this one, the gateway opened and I don't know.
When they're in the cave and they see all the numbers, the date, the years on the wall.
Yeah.
Volcano eruption or whatever. Just some things that were like big natural disasters apparently that like caused a lot of problems on Earth. And then 1984, which is the first Ghostbusters Manhattan cross rip. So then there's a 2021. So the whole events in 1984, who wrote all those dates on the cave? Was that Shandor?
Yeah, Shyamalan.
So he knew that what they were doing in 1984 wouldn't work because he already had 2021 up there. So they were just going to try it in 84, but he knew that another event would happen in 2021 in case. Is that what we're led to believe?
So here's the thing that I like, if I'm thinking this through. So every 30 years, the gateway can be opened. They explain this and I forget it. Do you remember? They talk about why Oklahoma, that mine was important.
It's just because of the quality of that metal that they could mine out of there. It was selenium. It was a electrical conducting metal.
But like
all metals are.
Wasn't New York like a quote unquote backup plan? Because it almost felt like the temple was there the whole time.
Yeah.
It was almost like in 84, they opened that doorway just to that temple. Like, did they just teleport back and forth? I don't know.
No, I think he, for some reason, was also he was like a Rockefeller. He was like an oil man. He was a businessman. So he had money, and he probably went on business trips to New York all the time. So he built that skyscraper in New York. But he also knew, because apparently he knew the future, that there would be another cross-rip possibility in the year 2021. So even if the 84 didn't work, which he wasn't alive for anyways, apparently, they could try it again, I guess. But was that it? Was there more numbers and they didn't bother talking about them? Was there a 2050
Yeah, I'm sure there was.
But if there wasn't, he knew that would be it.
The way I took Shandor, Shamarama, whatever his... Another thing that just doesn't need to be in this movie is that his body... Who put him in that coffin?
Himself?
No, because he's not alive.
But he's not dead either, according to the Wikipedia entry.
Yeah, fuck Wikipedia on this.
That's the fan base, so I don't know. They've got info on something.
It really seems clear to me that he had his body placed next to the hole.
Well, he had followers, so where are they? And did none of that carry on? You know, like none of the kids of these followers carried on?
Apparently not.
Yeah, where were all these followers in 84? Was there any sort of Shandor or Gozer worshippers still alive? Because, I mean, the way Egon talks about it in the first movie is that was something that happened, like, in the 20s, and the worshippers were just done after that for some reason.
Yeah.
And why didn't this work in 1945?
Yeah.
Who stopped that? Is this a prequel movie? Are we going to see Ghostbusters from the 1940s?
So, anyway, to finish the Shandor thought, Egon made it so that the door couldn't open on schedule, and it's constantly trying to open or something, which doesn't make any sense, because what was coming up out of the ground? That doesn't make...
That made sense to me in that this all happened in 2021. So when he stole all the equipment or took all the equipment and didn't tell anybody where he was going, he must have done that sometime in the 90s.
Yeah, I guess. Think.
So he's been preparing for this event in 2021 for like over 20 years now. So he set up all those proton packs to stop it. So then, I don't know, the door opened and then everything started coming out.
But I thought the dogs...
But don't you need the dogs? Yeah, you don't need the dogs.
Here's a question for you. If this only happens every 30 years or so, why did he have to spend the last 25 years of his life there if it's not going to happen until 2021?
Yeah, that they make it seem like it just took him that long to prepare.
All he did was put some proton packs on the wall.
Yeah, and abandon his family and not tell his partners where the fuck he was going. He made it so bad for himself. Egon Spengler, one of the smartest people in the world, a city dude, likes to work at colleges, really has no sense of humor, but is a really fun-loving guy. He has kids, because apparently he went on a date. You got to at least go on a date, right, to have a kid.
Yeah.
He maybe had a wife. I don't know. He just up and doesn't tell anybody what he's doing, starts spouting apocalyptic shit, and then just leaves. Like, who is this guy? Why would you suddenly tell people that watch the first two movies that this is what this guy became?
Of the original four, the only one I could see doing this would have been Winston.
No, it would have been Ray. Ray would have been but he would have told everybody what he was doing, but he would have been the prepper. If anyone would have been a prepper, it would have been Dan Aykroyd.
Maybe.
Couldn't it just have been him? Couldn't Egon have just died? Because that would be unfortunate, but he was Harold Ramis, so he died. And then Ray is the crazy one. But they needed the kids to find all this stuff and not have any knowledge about the Ghostbusters. So this is the only way in Reitman's mind that they could have made this happen. But I submit, and I think I said this before, that it could have just been an uncle. It could have been like a brother of Spengler, right? There could have been some way to bring them into the Spengler family as an homage to Harold Ramis without turning him into an absolute piece of shit, deadbeat dad.
It's a problem.
It's a problem that I just cannot, after the fourth viewing, I just cannot get over. I didn't even feel this way. Like, a lot of people were angry about what Spielberg and Lucas did to Indiana Jones in the new the latest Indiana Jones movie. They felt they raped their childhood by making a horrible movie. But I'm like, the movie was bad, but they didn't really do much to change Indy. I felt he was just an older Indy, so it really didn't bother me. It could have been a better movie, but I wasn't insulted. This one, like, insulted me. Like, it just really insulted his character, and I can't get past it. So maybe it's my hang-up, but I'm like, man.
I can get by it.
How do you get by it?
I don't know. I just can.
How can I get by it? How can I get by it? I need help.
You just have to enjoy the nostalgia.
I enjoy some of the nostalgia, I guess. I love the Underground Lab. You know me. I even wrote a movie, right, with the Underground Lab. That was even before I saw Ghostbusters, but I love the Underground Lab.
The Underground Lab.
When I saw that movie, I was like, oh, yeah, Underground Lab. I love Underground Secret Labs.
And as always, I don't think anybody does Annie Potts justice.
Oh, man. She had a bigger role because there was even more dialogue in the trailer from her.
Was there?
Yeah, that they didn't include in the release. One fix for me would have been to, and I know this would have ruined the surprise, if that's what you want to call it, of the Ghostbusters coming in to defeat Zool at the end. I see how that was like important to a movie, that they wanted to make it like a clapping moment. Yeah, the guys are back. But I do think that like her calling Ray could have led him to, we could have saw him also contact Peter and Winston. And there could have been little scenes. And maybe this is where the Sigourney Weaver thing popped up. But that really just felt, the thing at the end with her, that just felt like just it had nothing to do with anything. It was just them goofing around as Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
But like we could have saw Ray try to convince Peter that there was something going on with Egon and I found him and there's some shit going, we got to go. And maybe Winston, I don't know. That just seems like they could have done something to show us them getting together, but it would have ruined the surprise at the end, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not a good surprise. You expect it, and so it just feels like they added it for the fuck of it. All right, is this movie changed at all by removing the original Ghostbusters? If you strip them from every scene, nothing of substance really changes.
Well, her calling Ray... I like that. That worked because he was there to give some knowledge about what happened. And I think that is important, but that his tone is off and his disdain for Egon is also out of character.
Total out of character. Yeah.
I just like the fact that she called that number from the commercial and it was Ray's a call. I mean, that was nice.
And see, like, that is a solid piece of writing because I could totally see them being like, well, why waste a good number? Let's
exactly.
just have them transfer it over here.
That is a clever callback. It wasn't just, let's just have this piece of equipment. Let's just have a Twinkie in the glove box.
I didn't like Muncher. Did you like Muncher?
I did like using him to get the equipment out of the lockup. I thought that was clever. One of the only parts that I laughed that I really enjoyed was when the sheriff says, "Who are you gonna call?" Because he's like the last person you would think would say that. Podcast, I don't like. He's a quality actor, this kid, but he's not funny, even though he's supposed to be some comic relief. I just don't find him. Sometimes he was funny. I'll give him that. When he kills all the marshmallows at the end, I thought that was pretty clever.
I loved all of the kids.
Yeah?
I loved them all.
No, because I mean, Finn Wolfhard, I can't believe that's his name.
Yeah.
He's just playing the role from Stranger Things, and he's okay, but he's an asshole.
See, I don't like him in Stranger Things. Like, I don't like his character, and I feel like this character is better.
What else? The girl, like, she's just is nothing. Like, there's really nothing to her whatsoever.
I loved her.
She's all right. Whatever.
Mckenna Grace. I don't know.
No. The other girl, the Lucky, the sheriff's daughter, the one who works.
Oh,
she's nothing.
Yes.
And then she's supposed to be a Ghostbuster at the end. She doesn't know anything about anything. She doesn't know how to use
none
these
of them
goddamn.
Do.
Well, Mckenna
don't
at
do
least
the Luke Skywalker thing.
No, Phoebe knows how to use the equipment because she's smart. The other kids don't know how to use it. But then they're like, they're the Ghostbusters now.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, it's a bunch of kids cosplaying as adults.
Exactly. Phoebe
awesome.
and podcast should be that. And since they brought in Trevor fixing the car, that's fine. Like, that's okay. He can be one as well. But just having his little so-so girlfriend become a Ghostbuster, I was just like, that's not earned at all.
I liked it.
Yeah,
that did not bother me.
Phoebe's okay. I like Phoebe. Phoebe's fine. But the joke thing falls completely flat.
The joke thing was terrible.
Awful. Just awful.
It's so funny how Paul Rudd is such a leading man now because I don't know if it would have worked without him.
He can be captivated in the seismology, but still teach the class.
You're still really pissed at him.
I am really pissed.
Slacking. Okay. So, predictions for the next one that they will eventually make.
I see that being better, and I see me enjoying the next one because they've gotten all this out of the way.
Do Bill Murray or Dan Aykroyd, are they going to be in the sequel at all?
Aykroyd and Winston will be, but not Murray. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think Murray. You think Aykroyd will?
Yes, because this is his whole life. Like if you read Wikipedia, one day hasn't gone by since Ghostbusters 2 that he hasn't talked about making another Ghostbuster movie. People are always asking him about it. It's the biggest thing in his life. Unfortunately, he could have been like Mike Myers, like, okay, well, Wayne's World's done. I'm going to now make Austin Powers, like that should have been Aykroyd. Aykroyd should have been like, okay, well, Ghostbusters is done. Blues Brothers, it didn't work as a sequel. What else can I do? Like, he should have tried to make something else that he could have been in. Did you see Coneheads?
Yeah.
It's a funny movie. I just watched it
Okay.
last year. No, it's actually I was surprised. I always thought it would be stupid, but I was like, this is actually a really funny movie.
It's funny. It kind of grinds at me a bit. Like
Maybe, but you got to watch it again. It's funnier than Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure. The biggest thing that we talk about with this movie, we haven't brought up at all, and this is a great sequel to Ghostbusters if there's no Ghostbusters 2.
Yes. I was just going to say that's really the last point I have to talk about, I think, is that as much as Reitman wants to pretend that that Ghostbusters 2 is canon, it is absolutely not. If I'm to believe what this new movie is going on about.
If it pretended Ghostbusters 2 did not exist, this movie actually gets a little better.
It does. It works better to know that there was no Statue of Liberty walking through the Hudson River. I think that's what it is. And then through the streets of New York, and then somehow they had to walk it back up to Liberty Island. That makes this movie work better, and that the kids don't know much about the Ghostbusters. If it was an isolated 3 years, maybe at the most, maybe 2 of them busting ghosts, and then the 100-foot Marshmallow Man, which a lot of conspiracy theorists, especially with no internet and not as much video, it's believable. It's more believable to me that they wouldn't have as much knowledge, and that it could be seen as a conspiracy theory.
You take away the city suing them, so they had money, and Winston was able to turn his money into something else.
And they closed the door, so the amount of psychokinetic activity would have been reduced. It just would have been what it was, and then little by little they would have reached the peak, and then it would have slowly gone down.
Yeah.
They got rid of everybody. It totally makes it more believable as long as you get rid of Ghostbusters 2.
So I'm bringing this up because that is where my prediction for the sequel is going to be. I think that Reitman made a legacy sequel to part 1. And I think his next movie will be a legacy sequel to part 2.
I think that would be a bad idea because I am in a minority where I like number 2, but I think the rest of the world, from all I've ever understood, is that they hate it.
This movie is better than part 2.
No, I don't agree. Just because it's a comedy. It's supposed to be a comedy. And this movie is not anywhere a comedy compared to number 2.
That Aaron just made, audience, it was great. It was worth it. So what I absolutely expect from part 2 is there's only Winston. There's the kids, but they're back in New York, and the kids are there. Paul Rudd is going to be like a second half re-entrance where he gets brought back from Oklahoma to the city for something, or they're just all together.
Well, I'll tell you what he's going to be. He's going to be the new Louis Tully. So he's going to find some way to work for the new Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Phoebe and Podcast are going to go to New York to meet up with Ray and Winston. All right. So they're going to be part of this new Ghostbusters thing that Winston is spearheading. Yeah. Annie Potts will probably return. And then Dan Aykroyd will be there as well, because I think Winston is going to bring in Aykroyd and Annie Potts. But Peter Venkman is not going to want anything to do with it. He's just going to go off on his own or whatever. He's the only person that Winston can't convince to come back because he's got a good thing going. Probably Sigourney Weaver will now play an actual role in the movie.
I don't know.
And maybe something with her son.
Oscar is absolutely going to be in it. He's absolutely...
Because Reitman was in Ghostbusters 2, and he totally remembers working and helping his dad on Ghostbusters 2. So that's the one that's near and dear to him.
And I think this next movie is going to be his goal of reclaiming that movie.
Yes, he's going to try to help people's view of it.
Yeah, but he's going to try to explain how the River of Slime occurred. And I'm very excited for unnecessary, even though
that would make me happy for the future of Ghostbusters if that's his goal. But the Statue of Liberty is just, what the fuck is he gonna do with that?
They're gonna do something, even if it's as subtle as they're in New York, so they can show it and they can show how it was patched at the bottom or something.
That would be pretty funny. Yeah,
they'll do something. It's a reclamation project. That's my guess.
Okay, I like that. I'm good with that. And I think the River of Slime will come into it, but not Vigo. I think Vigo's going to be left out.
Oh my God, Vigo better.
Because you don't want to just redo the whole thing. I mean, they already redid the movie in this version with Zool. Yeah. You can't do another Star Trek Into Darkness and piss everybody off.
No.
Where they retell the Khan thing. That pissed everyone off.
And remember how Reitman made it a big thing that they at some point changed the logo from on the car back to the original?
Yeah. Right. Why would he do that?
They said it was good. He couldn't talk about it because it was a plot point for the next movie.
What was just his way of saying, I don't know. I didn't think about that. I'll just pretend it was all part of the deal.
Any closing thoughts?
You got anything else?
No, I don't really have much else.
I don't know. I wanted to like the movie more than I did, but it doesn't, even though it ruined Egon for me, and now I have to live with that because they're going to carry that on for the next couple movies. It doesn't ruin the franchise, and I of course will watch another one because now I feel like since they got past all this bullshit, we could just see a fun, proper New York sequel. Maybe they'll take it in a way where I'm like, that was a fun ride. So that's, I guess, I'm hopeful. What are your feelings?
I just feel like the majority of the time when they do this stuff, they botch it, and that's what they did. They botched it, and it could have been great. Halloween.
You want to talk about those again?
I just want to, in terms of legacy sequels,
I can't do this.
They might be on the top of my list in terms of best handling of it all.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the first one, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, but they also do the thing where her 40 years were kind of shitty, and they turned her into kind of a shitty, crazy person. So maybe not. But overall, I don't know.
But as I recall us talking about it, it made sense, and it didn't destroy the character.
It made sense, but I just wish.
And they worked up, and they put in the work to make us believe that that's where she was, instead of just saying like, oh, by the way, Egon's a deadbeat dad. Deal with it.
These characters don't have to have made a mistake in the last 40 years. They could have just continued living happy lives.
True. But where's drama? Where's the drama? You need some sort of character arc. There has to be something. If you're just living a happy life, why would they be in the position they're in to make a movie that's inherently interesting? It's got to be something.
Yeah. Well, I am out of things to talk about.
I am so out of things to talk about.
Do you know what I like? I wonder if anybody will notice.
What?
This episode, it doesn't have anybody saying what the show is.
I can always grab. Sometimes we forget to have an ending.
Really?
Like a thing, and I just grab it from an old episode.
Yeah, that's funny. I want the ending for this one just to be like, okay, you can go home now. Go.